Hey friends, Godforge Alpha is coming. The Fateless Tower. Are you ready? Let's find out. So in this video, I'm going to go through my take on what the Fateless Tower might look like for the Godforge Alpha. First 3 waves. Kind of taking inspiration from what they've said, what other games have done, what we've noticed and seen in the UI and everything like that that we have seen from Fateless about Godforge. And I kind of put my own mind to it, essentially, to determine what it could look like, how it's going to work, so that way we can break it down for people who might not understand what entirely Simon or the team might be talking about. So, let's go ahead and dive in. Everything that you're about to see here is complete speculation. None of it is confirmed. What they have said about what they are going to include and do with the tower mode, I have inferred. I've gone through the video multiple times to make sure I kind of know what I'm talking about. So if I do get anything wrong, I'm sorry. But just know that I'm probably going to get some stuff wrong. And that's okay, because they're still trying to figure out all this stuff as well. So if you don't know, a tower from a game is a game mode where you start at the base floor and work your way up level by level, going up the tower. Now, it could be going up or it could be going down, like descending the depths of hell or something. We don't know. So I'm just going to talk about this as if it's the Tower of Babel, because that's something that we can work off of. So essentially, you're going to start at the first level. The first level, depending on how they do it, may be a tutorial where we choose our first starting champion, or where we are given our first team of champions. It should be level across all accounts, depending on if we get to choose a starter from one of 3 options, or if we are given the same team, everyone to start. Since this is a competitive mode, I'm assuming that they're going to either make it completely random or give everyone the same starting team, because that's what would make sense from a competitive angle. Everyone starts with the same team, has the same chances to earn everything else, and it's just depending on how you use your resources to get up the tower. So, starting on level 1, this is where you would have your enemies, you would have a description, the star rating. I know the star rating looks a little bit different from some other games, but this is actually something that we have seen in Fateless videos, is that there are the normal 3 stars, but there is a 4th conditional star, such as use only Aru faction champions or something of the sort like that. These don't change throughout the slides that I'm going to go through, and neither do the enemies, but this is just kind of showing what kind of information you might see, so on and so forth, just overall for each of these levels. Now, as you can see here, this goes 1, 2, 3, 4, and it continues on up. They plan to have between 120 and 150 floors. They have said both those numbers. And there are some things that we have to get into on what features they are going to have, are not, so on and so forth. But starting here from an overall generalized point, floor number 1 is going to cost 10 energy. Say we have 30 left, whatever. You're going to have the drops that you can drop. So this level would drop common champions at a percentage, leveling materials at a percentage or an amount if it's guaranteed, and then gold currency at a percentage or at an amount, however they do that. Obviously, there's some UI stuff that I just kind of threw in here for embellishment. There's your star level, how you need to defeat them or what you need to do, and the enemies that are included on the level, along with the guide. We'll get more into this later, but the guide's really only applicable for bosses in my eyes, but it would be kind of cool to see this, at least, having the enemies that we are about to face, so we know the wave that we are about to have to encounter, so we can build and change our team depending on that. So let's say we fight through the first several levels and we get to our first mini boss. So say that we get to our first mini boss, and this example is on stage 5. Might be different, obviously, but this is just to show you the different stages and how often we may encounter them. So at this stage, it's a mini boss, so we're going to have to make sure that we are using this guide, or I had to make a small little change to get my point across. So small little mini boss, they drop armor. So this boss would have to do with armor, and it's only going to be uncommon armor between 1 and 2 stars. And there's a chance for different sets to drop. Now, I only have these 3 sets because we know there is the wolf set, but I don't know the other sets yet. So I just made up raven set and boar set. So this is, again, all conjecture and speculation. But then you still have the chance to drop uncommon champions. You still are dropping leveling materials and gold currency, maybe at a slightly higher rate than stage 4 or even stage 6 because it is a mini boss. But that is yet to be determined. But same thing, you're going to have the 3 stars, the 4th possibly, to earn that extra star. That is if they're including that in the alpha. But this is going to be where you farm. So you're going to not just fight this boss once. You're going to fight this boss multiple times if you need to make sure that you're actually able to beat the following stages. Now say I go up, I beat stage 5, go up to stage 6, beat it, go up to stage 7, I cannot beat it. I might have to go back down to stage 5 to farm some gear, maybe like 3 or 4 pieces. So I might fight this 10 times to make sure I have, a good chance of getting a good piece. And then I'm going to apply it to my characters and everything. And then I'm going to go back and fight stage 7 and beat it. So that is essentially, this boss is specifically for armor. Now we might go, let's say, to stage 10. The next one might not offer armor, might offer champions, because we know in the alpha we are not going to be pulling shards or aether stones or aether crystals. We're not pulling anything. We are fighting something for a chance to drop a hero from a specific pool that they have determined, which I think is a really interesting thing, and I'll get into that later as well. So this level 10, is going to be an actual boss, so it might be harder than the mini boss at a considerable level. But it's going to have a chance to drop rare champions as well as uncommon champions, and then it's also going to provide leveling materials and gold currency. At what rate, we don't know. So again, this is going to be a stage that, if there's a specific rare that you need to beat stage 11, or the next mini boss, or the next boss, or heck, floor 90, there's a specific rare that would do well, and you either want to get multiple copies of it, or just get it for the first time, you can come back down to this stage and farm it, fight it multiple times until you get that rare champion that you want. Now, floor 25, another mini boss. This mini boss, quote unquote, is dropping armor as well. It's dropping rare armor from star levels 2 to 3, as well as uncommon champions, leveling materials, gold currency. So once you beat this, you don't need to farm stage 5 anymore for this green gear. Now you're going to want to farm stage 25 because you're getting better armor, you're probably going to have higher rates, and you're probably getting more leveling in gold currency. Or this could also be, depending on how many levels they have, this may be gear that is uncommon 1 to 2 star of different sets. So if you wanted one of these 3 sets that are not the wolf, raven, and boar set, or you wanted one of these 3 sets, which is the wolf, raven, or boar set, you have the option to go farm one of these places. And this is reminiscent of dungeons, obviously, geared dungeons in these gacha style games, because you always go to either the spider or the dragon or the ice golem to get specific gear sets. So this is essentially how they're going to do that. Once you beat a certain level, you're going to be able to farm that level for that type of gear. And they'll probably have it set up where, like, you're going to need this type of gear to beat this boss, or one of these champions, rare champions, to beat this boss. But they're not going to make it to where you need something from stage 30 to fight stage 25. This is very linear progression with backtracking as needed in order to progress your account further and further. So as another example, we might get up to stage 30, and this doesn't have anything new per se other than the awakening potions, because as you know, we are going to be awakening our champions, and we're going to need materials to do that. So as you go up higher, maybe they start dropping the small awakening potions, and then medium awakening potions, and then large as you get higher and higher. So it's going to be, again, kind of railroading you into this, okay, yeah, now I can start awakening my heroes and stuff, and I'm going to need to in order to fight these next several floors. so on and so forth. So again, it's going to be very, from my understanding, it's going to be very linear, very progressive, very incremental, which is good because it's going to simulate what you would be doing on your account anyways. And again, we'll get into that in a second. So then another example, you might get up to stage 55, and this is where purple gear comes in, or epic gear, 3 to 4 stars. Floor 70 is might be when you can open up that epic pool of champions to get that epic that you need to really step up your account. This could be an earlier floor or later floor. I'm just throwing out numbers and stuff at this point, but I hope you get the ideas that as you're fighting, you're going to use the stuff you're getting from lower floors, farming those to actually get the ones that you need to then keep progressing up and up this tower. And then, like I said, I'm showing here, it's only the medium awakening potions at floor 90. It could get up to even more floors, more materials, better odds for champs. It could be whatever. And so the significance of this is that more than likely the backdrop is going to be just about the same for everything. So the actual environment that we are fighting in is probably going to be the same for every floor or very similar. But the bosses that we're going to fight are bosses that Fateless is going to have to make for the regular game modes anyways, for the gear dungeons in Godforge. So the boss, whatever rarity the gear is, the boss that they are building out is probably going to offer the same types of armor that it's offering in the alpha in the actual released game, just in its own gear dungeon with its own floors and difficulties and everything like that. So for these sets specifically, this could be the Golden Golem, and it offers the Wolf, Raven, and Boar sets. So technically, when the game releases, this could be stage 2 of the Golden Golem, Treasure Golem. This one could be stage 4 or 5 of the Treasure Golem. This one could be stage 6 or 7 of the Treasure Golem. This could be 8, 9, 10 of the Treasure Golem or higher. But it's going to be reflected differently in the alpha as compared to the actual game release. Instead of having just the levels that you can go up of that specific dungeon or this dungeon or that dungeon or the campaign, you have the campaign with the dungeons sprinkled in, all in a progressive linear format. So you're just working your way up. You're unlocking better and better stages of the dungeons, either with or without the same bosses. You're unlocking better awakening dungeons at certain levels, better farming for heroes or leveling materials or gold at different levels. And as you get better and better, you can defeat harder and harder floors until you get to the top 120, 150 clan boss at the top, and so on and so forth into damage ad infinitum. So the features that we won't have, we will not have shard pulling. We won't have those. We're going to have, like I stated earlier, we're going to have pools that we work from where we get random drops from a specific set of heroes. We also won't have masteries, which is something that they have talked a lot about. And we won't have those in the alpha because they said that that's something that we have to unlock through the storyline, through hidden challenges. And it's probably a system that is going to take some time to implement, which is something that they'll probably work on later. And since we don't have that story to unlock them and everything like that, the system is really reliant on the storyline. We're not going to have it during the alpha phase, which is fine by me. That's not going to be an issue. They haven't said if there's going to be implicits yet, or imprinting onto the weapons. They also haven't said if there's going to be weapon or gear awakening as well. I know we will have hero awakening or champion awakening, but we don't know if there's going to be gear or weapon awakening either. I don't know if that's going to be in the game at all, but still, it's not going to be in the alpha to our knowledge at this time. We also won't have all of the heroes that are going to be available on launch or even for the actual beta. We are going to have a select pool of heroes that Fateless will actually have completed for the alpha, which I think is fine. They're more than likely going to be the key heroes and gods that we're going to want to use anyways in the game, so that is totally okay. Now, getting into features that we are going to need with this alpha, specifically, I'm going to go in some things that I've thought of. It's not many, but it's some. So first is I don't want to have to scroll forever when trying to find a specific dungeon. So it'd be really nice if, as we complete stages, it condenses them down so we have access just to the actual dungeons or awakening dungeons or level material or gold currency dungeons, whatever they may be, the floors that are important need to be available and clickable. However, the other floors that are just fodder to get to those higher ones that are just fodder to get to the bosses, I don't want to have to scroll through every single time I open up the game, even if it's to go down or up or whatnot. So having them collapsible or condensed in any way, it's where if I click this, it's going to pop up with 26, 27, 28, and 29. That's going to be ideal because, as I said, I don't want to scroll that much. So, second, I really hope that we do have for bosses guides, or at least their abilities, actions, whatnot. For actual waves, we don't need a guide per se, but at least knowing the gods and being able to see their kits so we know how to respond first try, or, you know, if it's more difficult, to build our teams around the kits that the bosses or the waves of enemies have. I think that's very important, especially for this competitive aspect. That is going to be super important to know what we're dealing with so we can build and maximize our teams to compete. Some questions that I still have, I went over a couple of these, but will all waves of the alpha be competing against each other? Because we know it's a competitive event that they're wanting to hold. So is each wave competing all together or individually? I know there's going to be one wave that is half the people, another wave that is half the people, and the third wave that is all the people. So I'm assuming it's going to be individually, or the first two might be compared, or it could just be the last one where everyone is involved that is compared amongst everybody. But it's very interesting. Want to know how that's technically going to work. And I know they'll figure that out. They probably don't know yet, which is fine, but it's still a question I have. Will the start be like the initial idea, pick from a starter, or gain standard champions and then move forward? So I already went over this. It could be like how they have it currently, where you pick a starter and then you go from there, and then you just have to, you know, use that starter to unlock more heroes. Or is it going to be where we are all given the same team, which is what I think in this competitive sense might be ideal, is we all get the same team of uncommons and maybe a rare, and we then have to see what we can do with that team to get to the top. Will there be imprinting? That's important because that's how I see a lot of these builds getting built very well, is imprinting our duplicate heroes onto weapons. And this will be a prime time to test that out because we are going to be able to farm champions for this purpose to imprint them on our weapons, especially if we find one that is good. We can then farm out that character, that champion, that hero, and apply them to several different weapons to test it out. And my final thoughts, and I posted this in the YouTube video as well as in the Discord, and I wanted to come at it from 3 different angles. So my being a player, my being a content creator, and my being a game designer myself. My final thoughts on this whole alpha. I love it. As a player, this is definitely unique. I've never seen an alpha or anything like that do this sort of thing. I know Diablo kind of did something similar, but I love it. I think that it is a great idea, and it's very streamlined, focused on entertainment and keeping people engaged rather than just throwing them in the thick of it into something that yes, most of us know what we're getting into, but some people may not. They might have just signed up for no reason and are like, okay, cool, yeah, I get to play this game now. Instead of being thrown into an entire ecosystem, they're thrown into this very linear experience, and I think it's just a wonderful thing, and I'm very excited, especially for the competitive aspect that they're leaning towards. As a CC, a content creator, this is a wonderful thing for the community as a whole, because now us as content creators, the whole community of content creators, get to focus on this competitive aspect, which is going to drive us against each other in a good, healthy way. And then they're also going to allow us to focus on creating content that isn't just going to be recycled whenever the actual game gets released. This is going to be specific content for the alpha. It is going to be useful because everyone's going to be wanting to look up guides on how to beat floor 70 or beat floor 75 or whatever. people are going to want to look up guides for that, and that is driving people to us content creators, because we will be creating those guides for you guys, and as well as which units to use and everything like that, team compositions, so on and so forth. I think this is a very content heavy way of doing it in such an amazing way for a community, both of content creators and just in general. And then as a designer, were I behind the chair of designing this, I would immediately have said, yes, absolutely, let's do it, because it forces everyone into an experience that is very, very similar, but with so much creative freedom that you can do what you need to do or want to do to get to the end. So everyone starts off at the same foot, and then everyone ends completely different. Maybe, maybe not. If there's enough diversity, they should, and I think they're going to be. But this experience is going to be something that everyone has experienced from floor 1 to floor 150. Everyone is going to have to go through the same part of the game at least once, at the same time, essentially, and experience it with all the same drop rates with everything. So all players will take the same steps, have the same initial experience, and come face to face with the same things in the same way, essentially at the same time. I know that's a lot, but it's important. This helps with data collection, as instead of having some players focus on the campaign, and some players focus on dungeons, or some players focus on PvP if that were in it, or clan stuff, every player has to focus on every one of those aspects. Every player has to fight through floor 1 through 4. Every player has to fight the dungeon on 5. Every player has to go through 6 to 9. Every player has to fight dungeon 10 in order to get to the clan boss. Now, not every player may get to the clan boss, but every player who does get to the clan boss has to go through floor 100, 110, 120, 130, 140. And it's going to be very good for their data collection, so they can understand how the game is performing and working, what it's doing right, what it's doing wrong. But not only is that information going to be focused, but there's going to be a lot of it because everyone has to do it. And the people that get to the certain floors where things become more important, as little tiny changes to stats, on weapons, on units, and everything like that, are going to be the people that actually care about those things and can help influence the game. So all in all, this is the tower for Dummies. I know, yes, a lot of it is speculation. I get that, and I'm sorry, but it's important to kind of know, because when it gets here, it's coming. You only have 10, 12 days to make your way through this. So understanding it now, understanding how these games work and how this specifically, something unique that we haven't seen before, might work, is going to be very important to making sure that you are going to compete well, get high on that leaderboard, because we all want to see you succeed and exceed your expectations. So I hope this was informative. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns, please put them in the comments down below. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Bye.